Namaskar and welcome to all the viewers. I'm Dev Surveyanshi and this is Democratic Dialogues. Today we are joined by a person who does not need a lot of introduction, Dr. and Professor Ram Puniyani ji. He he is a luminary when it comes to the medical field. He has been at the forefront of so much of activism work, human rights work, and you know, in efforts to maintain secularism in this country. And over the years, he has become such a well-known name because he started speaking up when nobody was speaking about the issues that we were witnessing in this country. So it is an absolute honor, sir, to welcome you to our channel.
Thank you. Thank you, James.
So, sir, my first question to you, you've been at the forefront of fighting Hindu fundamentalism in India, especially at a time when it was not a mainstream concern as it is today. Can you tell us why you chose to speak up rather than keeping quiet?
See, when Babri Mosque was demolished, actually we have been witnessing communal violence earlier also, from 1960, 70, and in the 80s there were a lot of communal violence. But I was not so disturbed by that. I thought as society progresses, they will be taken care of because ultimately these are superficial social issues and they may not affect our country so much. But 6 December 1992, when Babri Mosque was demolished, I realized that this communal violence, which is hiding communal politics, which can also be called Hindu fundamentalism or Hindu right wing, that is out to destroy our democracy. Now, I have come to a understanding that social change towards equality can take place only in a democratic setup. So let me repeat. I realize that Hindu right wing, Hindutva, Hindu nationalism is out to destroy India's democratic fabric. And my understanding is that social march towards equality can take place only in democracy through social movements. So after that, till that time, I was trying to associate along with my job. I was trying to associate with trade union movement. But that day, I decided that I will try to understand Hindu fundamentalism, its dangers, and I could see that it has a lot of similarity with what happened in Germany and Italy. I could see that it is targeting Muslim minorities today, but it will also target Christians, Christian minorities also. And along with that, the rights of the Dalits, equality of women, and a decent place for Adivasis, that will also be hampered. And these were my primary concerns, primary areas of concerns that in our society, these are the marginalized sections who should be given equality, whose struggle for equality should be respected, supported, encouraged. So from that day on, I thought okay, I will try to first understand this whole phenomenon of Hindu fundamentalism, and then to try to talk about it, make people aware about it through books, through lectures, through seminars, through workshops, and that's how the journey began in talking about this.
Okay. Especially why I wanted to personally ask you this question because so of course, sir, you are much older than me. I'm also one of the few people, maybe across the country, who was speaking about this, like even before Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. So for my generation, a lot of people were saying, like, why are you so negative about this man? He's going to come and do a lot of development. But when you know the ideology of Hindu fundamentalism, you cannot ignore the glaring reality that's going to come your way. So I completely agree with you on that. Which brings me to the second question, sir. Um, fundamentalism that we see today has its firm roots in the attempt to re-establish Brahminical hegemony under the garb of protecting Hinduism from being obliterated by the minorities. So,
Yeah.
how do you view this phenomenon? Can you shed some
Actually,
light?
actually, I must say this question has been very well formulated, and the use of the word Brahminical hegemony is very appropriate. Basically, this Hindu fundamental on one side, its essential core is Brahminical values. Like I will say that Hindu fundamentalism has 2 feet. 2 feet. One is the maintenance of Brahminical hegemony, Varna caste system. This is 1 foot, and the other foot is targeting the minorities and pushing them to a corner. So these are the 2 feet on which this Hindu fundamentalism walks. So it has nothing to do with Hinduism. That let me tell you. Hinduism, as practiced by large section of Hindu community in the India, and of course, what to say of anybody else? The greatest Hindu of 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi, was the first target of Hindu fundamentalists. While Gandhi himself said, I am a Hindu, I can give my life for my religion, but that is my personal matter. And there is a Hindi phrase, a song which was his favorite, Vaishnav Janato Tenire Kahiye, Je Peer Parai Janege. Now, what does this mean? This basically means that if you are a Hindu, compassionate Hindu, compassion for others has to be the central point of practice of your religion. And this Hindu
Absolutely.
fundamentalism basically begins with the hatred for Muslims, and from the decade of 1990s, hatred for Christians also. That is a marginal phenomenon, but not so marginal because there is a very complexity involved. But they regard Christians and Muslims as foreigners. Obviously, in the modern world or in any world, no religion is a native or a foreigner. Religion is basically a universal value. Universal value. Buddhism, which originated in India, is maximally followed in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Southeast Asian countries. And today
Yes.
you won't find a single country in the world where Hindus are not there, right? So religion doesn't have nationality. That point, these people try to connect up. That in India means Hinduism, Hindustan, Hinduism. That's what they try to feel. So they have nothing to promote the moral values of Hinduism. For saying sake, they will say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but in their shakhas and other places, they have already made a huge ground for creating hate against the minorities. And of course, I must say, hate is the foundation for violence. I understand if there is no hatred, violence cannot be instigated. They are able to instigate
Absolutely.
violence only because they have cultivated hate for over a century, nearly a century. And this is totally against the essence of Hindu values. The Hindu values, as practiced by Gandhi and large sections of Hindus in India.
And sir, you know what I've noticed, you mentioned the beautiful adage Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When one even reads the Upanishads, like I've studied the Isha Upanishad, and it talks about the oneness that connects everything. You know, these are the sort of very deep and profound, uh, you know, learnings that we have in Hinduism. I think somewhere like if you are actually truly a practicing Hindu and you focus on what our culture and heritage is, you can never hate another human being. It's just not possible,
Correct.
no matter what the person's background is. You know.
Very true.
Um,
Very
all right. That brings me to the next question, sir. Hindu majoritarianism in the past decade has increased with the help of mainstream media and so many other factors we've seen. What are your views on the creation of this myth and its character?
See, I think as you correctly point out, there are many other factors. Mainstream media is one. And I also must tell you, Indian media had its glorious heights in the decade of 50s and 60s, when when a cartoonist like Shankar could criticize the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, and Jawaharlal Nehru would invite him for tea and would say, "Don't
Hmm.
spare me." That was a time when our media was at its zenith. Now, once Modi became Chief Minister of Gujarat, he invited the corporate section, and since then the corporate started taking up the media. So, as Ravish Kumar has correctly pointed out, it has become a Godi media, lap media for the corporate. And corporate and communal, these have a deeper alliance. You see similar phenomenon in Germany also, when these forces came to power, media was totally hand in glove with that. So other factors which have operated is that there is something called shaka. I hope you can understand what is a shaka. There is a particular word.
Yes.
And in these shakas, the morning when they call children for playing and all that, that is followed by shaka bautik once a week or so. And then I must compliment those forces that they've been so consistent in their goal. Weekly brainwashing, then monthly programs, 3 monthly program, yearly program, training program for workers. So those they create preachers, pracharaks, and these pracharaks have infiltrated most of the walks of our life. So media one side, corporates control it. Second is these preachers have entered there. Then our state apparatus, judiciary, bureaucracy, police force, these have infiltrated. Then there is a chain of schools called Saraswati Shishu Mandir, Ekal Vidyalaya, and they have tried to control our curriculum. And in curriculum, you see that they have removed Einstein and Darwin. So the theory of evolution and even periodic table is out. And the main theme which they are trying to come that in ancient period, Hindus had all the knowledge, interplanetary travels, and uh, it travels by like aeroplane and all that. They don't mention air hostesses and air pursers, but air travel they mention very low. Then our prime minister goes to tell us that we had a plastic surgery where elephant's head could be planted on human head. So all these things they have tried to percolate through education, through social mechanisms, and through their community work. They do a lot of community work. And in this community work, along with the community work, these sort of values are also inserted by and by, so that uh, media is one, which is correctly called Bodhi media. Bodhi media is lap media, media sitting in the lap of the corporate giants. And then there are all the supplementary factors. Teachers are there, Swayamsevaks are there, then chain of Shishu Mandirs are there. Books have been doctored, books have been modified. You must be remembering Yogendra Yadav and Professor Suhas Palshikar. They have written to NCRT that please remove our name from the advisory board because we do no longer identify with the books which we had originally planned. So this whole thing has created a sort of what I call social common sense. This social common sense is a default understanding of the society. Unless and it is a mainstream flow which most of the people believe, unless you go against the stream and try to put your point, it is difficult for these things to be taken to the people. And second thing is, of course, there is a failure on the side of the progressive forces, left forces, centrist forces, in fighting the danger posed by this sort of a continuous propaganda from last several decades. The propaganda directed against the weaker section of society, the propaganda which glorifies the values of Manusmriti type in a very sophisticated way. So that's why we are in the present mess.
Yeah, and sir, a medical analogy comes to mind that the work that they've been doing, it's like a chickenpox virus, which is stagnant in the body, in a state of stasis for quite some time. and you think everything's all right, and suddenly it flares up and it takes over the whole body.
Yeah,
So I mean, how they came up suddenly, and I do believe that if maybe we would have had a much stronger focus on the development of scientific temper, on understanding how there exists a dichotomy between what people are studying via education and what the society is tempering them to be, or kind of conditioning them to be. The dichotomy and the chasm, the schism between both, just started increasing, and what we termed as fringe elements just a decade ago have become mainstream in this short span of time. So yeah, it's a lot of things that have come together to make this happen. My next question, sir, and we cannot, of course, ever ignore the caste factor in India. So, caste factor has become more pronounced under the resurgence of Hindu majoritarianism. What is the correlation here? Can you shed some light on this matter?
yeah. See, first is that we have to see the origin of communal forces. And I will like to inform friends that in the decade of 1920s and 1910s, during the colonial period, due to the efforts of Dr. Ambedkar, Jyotirao Phule, Savitribai Phule, the Dalits started showing their rights, asking for their rights. So the various movements started coming up for caste equality. Ambedkar called for caste annihilation in due course. So when these Dalits started coming into the social space, the elite, Brahminical, and their supporters, they got disturbed. And that what led to the formation of RSS. That was one of the major factors. And the elite, mainly Brahmins, when they saw that even Dalits are coming up and try to become equal to us, try to participate in the freedom movement, try to ask for their equality. This is a this rings a danger bell for us. So then they came together, formed RSS, and called for Hindu Rashtra, called for those things. So that is the beginning. Second is that during last many decades, because of some reservation policy, some success, not total success, some success of reservation policy, Dalits started coming up. And by 1980, they had a sizable presence in the society, sizable say in the society. So the upper caste elite, mainly led by this organization, they came up, they brought up the issue of Ram religion, like the classical words which were used. Once Mandal was brought in, Mandal was one of the major steps in bringing social justice. So when Mandal was brought in, the Rath Yatra for Ram temple construction, demolition of Babri Mosque became stronger. So I'll remind you one interesting thing. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee was supposed to be a moderate face, but I don't regard him as moderate. I thought he was the cleverest RSS guy ever we had. So that time, when this Mandal Commission report was implemented, 26% reservation was given to OBC. After that, Advani's Rath Yatra for Ram Temple began. And when Vajpayee was asked what is happening, why a political party is working for temple? So Vajpayee said, and he very significantly said, oh, they have brought Mandal, so we have brought Kamandal. They have
Yes.
brought Mandal, so we have brought Kamandal. So basically, the politics of this Hindu nationalism also aims to ensure that caste equality doesn't come in. The forces which work towards caste equality are gradually strengthening. So, how to keep them in check? The biggest check is religious hysteria. So, you talk for jobs, you talk for bread, butter, shelter, employment. So, you hear the answer. Oh, we will have Ram temple, glorious Ram temples. We'll take you to the trip to the Ram temple. Be satisfied with it. So, this is
Hmm.
basically a battle between Hindu nationalism is again a battle to have subtle preservation of caste inequality. Subtle, it is not blunt. Like whenever they are in power, last decade, you can see that gradually they brought in reservation on the basis of economic backwardness. So what will happen? The reservation will get diluted. So similarly in universities, whenever in universities there is a provision for posts should be reserved for Dalits and all that, they by and large started bypassing it as they have infiltrated education. Most of the vice chancellors, as Rahul Gandhi says, belong to that school of thought. And in those universities also the reservation meant for low caste Dalits is gradually not implemented in practice. Theoretically, don't oppose, but practically, you do things where this caste inequality continues to remain. So, communalism, dominical communalism, has a central goal of keeping alive the caste and gender inequality. Let me add gender also. Gender is no less important
Absolutely.
in these matters. And you see the struggle for gender equality, beginning with Savitribai Phule. Then, in the decade of 80s, Indian feminism also came up, demanding for equality in so many spaces. Today, of course, it's a long history, but this is also something. In contrast to this, RSS talks about preserving our glorious past, glorious family traditions, and they don't regard even now women as equal beings. How do I say that? They are Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, exclusively male organization. What is the
Yes.
name of their women's organization, which is subordinate to them?
Hindu
It
Yuva
is
Vahini.
Rashtra
So sorry.
Sevika Samiti. Rashtra Sevika Samiti.
Sevika Samiti. Okay.
So here the word Swayam is missing. Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, Rashtra Sevika Samiti. So Swayam of women is supposed to be in the pocket of man. So that is in roughly how will I put. So caste and gender inequality doesn't come as it's part of the agenda.
Absolutely. Sir, as the, I'm adding to this question, there's an observation that I've seen. On one side, they play the religious card that, the minorities are going to eat up everything. Hindus have got a reservation as OBC. They're going to eat the OBC and Dalit reservation. They pit Hindus versus the minorities. But on the other side, you see that almost every, I would say every communal strike or a riot or anything that goes on by these forces, you always see the OBCs, the Dalits, and the Adivasis being used as the foot soldiers and as cannon fodder. Uh, and you will have one or two Brahmins at the top who will be controlling that entire group of people who are actually carrying this out on the ground. So, what are your views on this?
See, your formulation is correct, except that the Brahmin or the RSS worker or the BJP worker who's coordinating this will not be visible to you. He's behind the curtain. And these other sections, subaltern sections, one can say, this is called subaltern Hindutva. What does that mean? That RSS has made it a special point to go and do service work amongst these communities. Service work means they go to these communities, they try to revive their icon. Like there is one Suhail Dev in North India, Pasi community. So they have now glorified Suhail Dev, giving it an anti-Muslim slant. So the whole Pasi community, you are winning over. In Bengal, Matua, again a backward community. So BJP went and tried to make some Matua temple, so they became happy. So there are three mechanisms of winning over these sections. One is to pick up their icon and glorify them. Second is to do service work. Like they are the only organization which are able to do the community work all over India. And third, there is a social engineering. By social engineering, M.N. Srinivas, what he says, that lower caste tend to emulate the upper caste, feeling that those values are good. So this social engineering process,
Yes.
these three processes, plus fourth one is that they are able to successfully buy the leaders of these communities,
Mm.
by luring them to some post here and there. So these by four mechanisms, they are trying to uh, practice their subaltern Hinduism, Hindutva, subaltern Hindutva, through which these sections become their foot soldiers also. And you will be surprised that in many of the reserved constituencies for Adivasis, BJP is leading the game because from 1970s they are doing it. In many of the Dalit communities, they have a good say because they have Samajik Samrastha Manch, which is continuously working among
Yes.
things like that.
Absolutely. And it's really worrisome, when you look at it's just the same old pattern. It's just put into a new skin and presented in front of people. It's quite diabolical at at
Yeah, yeah,
many levels.
correct.
Which brings me to the next question, sir. According to you, what is the path forward for Hindus? Uh, you are a Hindu, I'm a Hindu, and we don't believe in what the RSS does. So, how do we reclaim our way of life and the narrative that all Hindus are like the RSS? And how do
See,
you view the mandate in this light, and vice
I see
versa?
the mandate if you see, India has around 79% Hindus. India has 79% Hindus. BJP at the best had got, I think, close to 50% of the votes. Means all Hindus are
Hmm.
not for the BJP, that is number one. Number two, you see that in the recent elections which were held in 2024, though India Alliance did not win the election, but this defeat was also like a victory. Defeat was also like a victory because BJP had
It
all the
was.
all the organizations supporting it, ED, IT, CBI, and all the corporate section. So it was not just BJP alone. BJP and small minuscule and NDA partners. While India had fought on its own, but India fought mainly because it could raise the issue of constitution. And I think for Hindus, those who are Hindus, practicing Hindus, or born in Hindu families like me, the path is that of Gandhi and Nehru. The path is that of Indian Constitution. And in US, there is an organization called Hindus for Human Rights. Hindus for Human Rights. So we are a section who either practicing Hindus are born in Hindu families and related to Hindu culture very deeply. We have that path where we stand for Indian Constitution, which gives us full liberty to practice our religion, but to oppose that interpretation of our religion, which is totally contrary to the values of deeper Hindu culture. So that is something what is our big challenge, which we have to keep struggling for.
Absolutely. And sir, I also would like to add here that, the Hinduism is also somewhere people have also forgotten that Hinduism is plurality embodied. If I choose to be an agnostic, if I identify myself as an agnostic, I can still be a Hindu, a practicing Hindu. I can believe in two gods and I can be a Hindu. I can believe in one God and be a Hindu. I can believe in multiple gods and be a Hindu. So the plurality and the immensity of what Hinduism has represented through time and still does, that somehow seems to be replaced by this one, of course, their obsession with one everything, one nation, one election, one this, one that. So I mean, how did I mean? For my mind, it's completely, hypocritical. Like, how can you try to, uh, envelop what Hinduism is with one single identity? How do you see this?
See, Hinduism has multiple traditions. Multiple traditions. I'll begin with an interesting story about Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen. He won the Nobel Prize when he came to meet his grandfather. His grandfather asked him, "What religion you follow?" So Amartya Sen said, "I am an atheist." So his grandfather said, "Oh, so you belong to the Gnostic tradition of Hinduism." So this is what Hinduism is. While right from atheists like Charvak and Lokayat tradition to those believing in polytheism, to those believing in monotheism, to those believing in abstract single God as a power. So all that is a part of this glorious tradition, which which is there to take support for. We, we can we can go by that path, which is the actually real Hindu tradition, and combat these RSS Hinduism in the sense narrow, sectarian, and as you said, one. In Hinduism, on the contrary, many at all the levels. There is Durga somewhere, there is Shiv somewhere, there is Ram somewhere, there is Ayappa somewhere. So this is what Hinduism basically stands for. So in reply to their one, we have to say many, and which is the truth, which is the truth. Like so, and that is where I think many of us have failed to underline these facts, which Mahatma Gandhi in his life very successfully practiced, preached. And he said, "My life is my message." That's why you see, even at the time of independence, he was not part of the celebrations of the independence. The person who led the independent movement was not there to celebrate the fruits of independent movement because he was more interested in communal harmony and trying to douse the fire of communal hatred. So this is the path for those who call themselves Hindus or born in Hindu families to struggle against this distortion of Hindu values by political forces.
Absolutely. Which brings me to one last question, sir, before we come to the end. As a result of what we've seen, the Hindu majoritarianism in the past decade and its meteoric rise, um, it has led to, of course, the opposition has fought a very long, hard fought battle, and the opposition has certainly given adequate representation to all sections, to the minorities as well as all the castes. But you see the end result of this, meteoric rise of majoritarianism, that today we see the minorities becoming invisibilized, especially the Muslims. Like this regime, Modi 3.0, or NDA, whatever you call it, they themselves are confused about it. You don't see a single Muslim member of parliament in their cabinet, nor were they given tickets by the BJP. There is not a single Christian minister, union minister, in this cabinet. So there is extensive invisibilization of uh, entire populations of people. How do you view this?
See, this fits very much into their agenda. Their
Hmm.
whole agenda of Hindu Rashtra, in which Hindus have a primacy, Hindus have a primacy, and Muslims and Christians they have a secondary marginal role. So they are in last one decade they have tried to bring forth this politics through their various actions, and I see it as a part of that they have done it during last 10 decades, 2 decades. And earlier also in their party, there was hardly representation of Muslims. One Muslim or two Muslim ministers were there at one time, then also they dumped them. And not a single Muslim MP was given a ticket for MP. Now, of course, they are trying to make some outreach to section of Muslim communities, but that is again for the sake of electoral purposes. not for empowering them or giving them any power. So this I will say is a core agenda of Hindu nation, Hindu nationalism, where minorities have to live either as ghettos or totally invisibilized in the national life of the country. So this is what they are trying to achieve. So in a way, RSS should be smiling in his sleeves that last one decade their agenda has gone few notches up with invisibilization of Muslims, ghettoization of Muslims, and intimidation of a section of Christian community. This continues to
Absolutely. Well, sir, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your lovely insights. By the way, I'm also one of your fans from such a long time. Uh,
thank you.
I I salute you for the courage you've had from the time you started speaking up till now. You've been consistently, educating people. I learned so much from you along my own political journey. So really, thank you so much for what you do. And
Thank you very much
for all of you,
for your kind words.
thank you so much, sir. And for all the viewers, if you have liked this interview come conversation that we had with Dr. and Professor Ram Punyani ji, please do like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And particularly share this message with our Hindu brothers and sisters and our brothers from the minorities and sisters from the minorities too, because everybody needs to understand that Hinduism, and if this mandate was anything to go by, majority of Hindus do not support the ideology of this regime, and we are standing united and strong together as Indians. Thank you so much. Till till the next segment, we will meet you again. Thank you.